So you've had a relationship with a woman with borderline personality disorder, and now it's over and your system is all out of whack. Maybe at first, when it ended, you felt relieved, like a weight lifted off your shoulders. No more emotional chaos. You're off the roller coaster. Finally, you can relax now that you're no longer responsible for regulating her emotional state, managing all the drama, and walking on eggshells. But now that she's gone, you feel empty. Everything reminds you of her. You miss her. You can't stop thinking about her, replaying conversations, wondering if any of it was real. And despite the relief, there's this void, a disorienting emptiness. And on top of that, she's distorting the relationship, maybe even dishonoring you by painting you the villain. Or worse, she's disconnected from you entirely and connected to someone else in that same passionate way that you thought was special, sacred, and reserved for you. And now she's giving it all to someone else, as though everything you shared was disposable. I'm Lise Leblanc, therapist, author, and life coach, and today I'm talking about that lock and key connection that even a smart, self-aware man can fall into. It's that powerful, addictive dynamic that draws him in on every level, emotionally, physically, sexually, energetically, and even spiritually. And it leaves him disoriented and sometimes damaged when it comes to an end. I'm focusing on women with borderline personality disorder and the men who find themselves in these relationships because there are not enough resources for men out there, and so many men are left trying to make sense of it all on their own. Okay, so BPD relationship dynamics start out with incredible intensity. It really is a honeymoon stage on steroids. The connection is way beyond anything you've ever experienced. And oftentimes she's brilliant, creative, playful, and makes you feel so alive because there's this unfiltered presence about her making you feel deeply seen, like you found someone who finally gets you. And she's often sensual, emotionally expressive, funny, imaginative, and it's intoxicating. She meets needs that you didn't even realize you had. That need for excitement, depth, meaning, intensity. She makes you feel significant, needed, connected, more in love than you ever have. It's like your souls collided. And the bond is really hard to let go of once things start to fall apart. And the truth is, those cracks start appearing very early in the relationship, usually within the first few months. Slowly, sometimes suddenly, things start to unravel in ways that don't make sense. She misunderstands your words or actions, takes things the wrong way, accuses you of things that seem completely irrational or out of context, and in a split second, you've gone from being her hero to being the enemy. And you'll find yourself constantly on the defensive, trying to explain your intentions, clarify your actions, and reassure her. And then there's the repair, and that's euphoric, but it never lasts. You start cycling faster from idealization to devaluation and back again. And as time goes on, the emotional whiplash intensifies. The highs are sky high, the lows are devastatingly low, and the worst part is no matter how hard you try, you can't fix it. And for a lot of men, that's unbearable, to realize that this might be a problem with no solution. Or worse, that there is a solution, but you can't figure it out and find it, and maybe the next guy will. But it's important to understand that the fractures in the relationship are predestined, meaning the person with BPD already carries deep, unresolved fears of abandonment and rejection that inevitably get projected onto you and onto the relationship. So no matter how loving, stable, or committed you are, once she gets attached to you and you become her emotional lifeline, any perceived threat to that bond, no matter how small, can trigger overwhelming fear. And it's physiological. That fear takes over. It leads to intense emotional reactions. It could be clinging, lashing out, shutting down, disconnecting. She might start sabotaging the relationship, sometimes consciously, but often unconsciously, or subconsciously through impulsive and self-destructive behaviors, as well as explosive episodes that seem to come from nowhere. And these moments are incredibly destabilizing because you're constantly trying to manage something that's so chaotic, unpredictable, and impossible to control. As the relationship unfolds, she becomes hyper attuned to any perceived shift in your energy or emotions. Everything becomes a cue that you're going to abandon her. If you're tired, distracted, stressed, unsure, or just emotionally neutral, she may interpret this as abandonment. Maybe you can't answer her in a split second when she reaches out. Maybe you're not as supportive as she needs you to be in any given moment. Maybe you talk to someone else or try to discuss a concern. And for her, it's a sign that you're preparing to leave. You don't love her anymore. You want someone else. She's too much, or whatever. So any flicker of emotional distance, even if it's completely justified, feels like a very threat to her survival. So she reacts strongly, maybe again by clinging, attacking, cutting off emotional contact, or redirecting her focus onto someone else. And that shift is often sudden, confusing, and very painful. And the more you try to make sense of it, the deeper you get pulled into the spiral. Then often, but not always, the emotional betrayals begin. And in some cases, they escalate into physical affairs as well. But this really depends on the severity of the disorder, whether they're getting treatment for borderline personality disorder, and also if there's co-occurring mental health conditions, personality disorders, or other issues. Each situation is different, but when the core wounds are left unaddressed, the relationship can quickly spiral into these patterns of push-pull, leaving you in a place of cognitive and emotional dissonance. The relationship becomes unsustainable, and even though you are well aware of this, and on the one hand, you know that you can't keep going, on the other hand, you keep hoping, believing you can fix it. Just need to try a little harder. And there's this huge sense of guilt, obligation, shame, and grief, and you're questioning everything. What's even more painful is realizing that not only was she dependent on you for reassurance, validation, emotional regulation, you'll probably also realize how dependent you've become on being idealized, valued, needed. It's gratifying. You feel essential to her survival, significant. It's like it gives your life meaning in some ways, and in the high times, it gives you energy and a sense of aliveness, a sense of feeling like you're on top of the world, like nothing could bring you down. And you miss her because she met so many of your core needs. Variety, significance, connection, contribution, love, meaning. She activated you on so many levels, and probably like no one else has ever before. And now, despite all the confusion, heartache, and pain, there still is a part of you that can't imagine a world where you'll never be with her again. And here's the catch. She may very well come back to you. Maybe it's you who will end up reaching out, hoping to repair things, get closure, or just feel that connection one more time. Maybe she'll return when her current relationship, whoever she's turned to, inevitably falls apart. Or maybe you'll never see or hear from each other again. But either way, during the times when you're cut off from her, you'll likely go into a state of emotional withdrawal. And it's not unlike detoxing from a drug. Your nervous system has been wired around her, her intensity, the highs, the chaos, the closeness. When she's gone, you'll crash, and you'll find yourself obsessing, replaying everything, questioning what was real. You'll miss not just her, but the version of yourself you were when she needed you, desired you, looked at you like you were the center of the universe. But now it seems she's forgotten you, doesn't want anything to do with you, sees you as the bad guy. Or maybe it's you that had to exit the relationship because it got too confusing and exhausting. You realized you had to save yourself. Whatever happened, there will be part of you that knows the relationship is unsustainable and toxic. And then another part that aches to feel that connection again. And it's that ache that keeps so many men stuck in the cycle, because it wasn't all bad. In fact, some of it was the best experience you've ever had. And sadly, some of it was the worst, maybe even traumatizing. Those times when she was completely unhinged, when it got scary and ugly. And even though you saw all the red flags, you know the dysfunction and the pain, you still long to return to that fantasy where everything felt intense, all-consuming, and perfect, even if it's just for a moment, to relieve these horrible feelings of withdrawal. So how do you put yourself back together after all of this? How do you stop the rumination, avoid going down that path again, reintegrate into normal relationships that will inevitably pale in comparison? Because here's the thing, she reached your core, cracked you open emotionally, made you feel more alive than ever, more seen than ever before. And that kind of feeling and connection is rare. It leaves an imprint. But the problem is the instability that comes with it. And that's where the danger lies. When the emotional highs become intertwined with pain, confusion, and trauma, the trauma bond becomes a source of ecstasy and suffering. To heal from this type of trauma bond, you have to confront reality, face the pain, ask yourself the hard questions about whether you are truly drawn to love or to emotional intensity, whether you are trying to connect or trying to rescue, whether you mistook emotional chaos for passion or control for security. Healing means being radically honest and accepting with yourself about what this relationship mirrored back to you. And it's hard to let go. That's where the real work begins, because until you face these truths, the cycle is likely to repeat itself either with that same person or with someone else, where you're chasing those emotional highs and mistaking it for love. Or you might spend your life questioning your worth, stuck in a state of cognitive dissonance where part of you knows that it was toxic, but the other part keeps romanticizing the connection, clinging to the hope that maybe this time things could be different. And that internal tug of war will keep you trapped, disconnected from yourself, and unavailable to anything healthy and real. If this is your situation, just know that you're not alone. If you need help healing, please consider reaching out to a mental health therapist in your area who specializes in borderline personality disorder, and consider my recovery programs that I link below. If you found this content helpful, please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And to learn more about borderline personality disorder, click on the link above.